What's going on, y'all? This is Alexander. You are plugged into the Nerd Companion. What's going on, y'all? This is Alexander from the Nerd Companion coming at you with a ClashCast episode going over 2024 WWE's Crown Jewel recap. We're going to do a recap episode today, take a different approach from our standard ClashCast episode, which we usually do for predictions. And so we will be doing a recap episode. I say we as in me and all the viewers watching. No guests today, had some scheduling conflict issues, but it's all good. Wanted to pump out an episode just to keep everything consistent by releasing an episode every month for the ClashCast content, for all your wrestling content here at the Nerd Companion. I know you're all probably thinking, Alex, why are you wearing that mask? Why are you wearing that? Well, you should already know. A couple months ago, it was rumored that the Lucha Bros were becoming to WWE. And I've yet to see them. I'm expecting them. I'm watching it week in, week out. When are they going to drop in? I will confess that every time I see LWO out there at Monday Night Raw, I'm always expecting that the Lucha Bros are going to show up. Especially with all the beef they got going on with the American-made faction. Hasn't happened. A couple weeks ago we saw the Motor City Machine Guns debut, so I figured it was probably time that it was going to happen because we're starting to see a bigger investment in the tag team division with WWE, which is really interesting. I can't wait to see that division grow. But to get back to the answer of the original question is, why are you wearing that mask? I'm going to continue to wear this mask in all the ClashCast episodes until the Lucha Bros come to WWE, or at least that there's news that they're maybe not coming. So, this is what it is. So, Lucha Bros, if you hear me, if you're listening, which I doubt you are because I only got 2 listeners out there, please come, because I don't even know how y'all even do a whole match with the Lucha mask on, as I'm having a hard time even getting words out into a microphone sitting down. So, mad respect to all the Lucha wrestlers out there, but let's get right into it. We start with Crown Jewel. A lot of people say that the Crown Jewel PLEs are what would be considered non-canon. If you don't know what that means, non-canon means something that's in a storyline that's not necessarily important for the true story. It's kind of like downloadable content or extra features, kind of things that are outside of what the WWE universe is telling as a story. So I was expecting kind of some twists that weren't actually going to be playing into future storylines. But it seems like everything that happened in Crown Jewel was probably something that's going to play out later on for all the narratives that are going on, at least in the card that was here for Crown Jewel. So I'm not going to be going over the matches in the order in which they were wrestled or produced on TV, because the first match is definitely the Bloodline match that I will be talking about last, because I feel that it's a good segue into what I think is happening at Survivor Series / War Games. So stick around if you are into the Bloodline story. Just stick around to the very end or fast forward to the end. But let's get started. So we have the Women's Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way. Man, that match was so good. The one thing I appreciate about matches that have more than 2 people in a ring is that it really showcases talent, and you can have these really intricate spots while giving other athletes and wrestlers a break by showcasing or putting the attention on several wrestlers, and basically the other wrestlers can get a break, so that every spot or every interaction with the wrestlers always means something, and it's always something special and spectacular to watch. Continue to show the wrestling world, the WWE universe, that the women's division is absolutely stellar right now. With that being said, though, I just feel that Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair are, I just don't feel like there's anyone that's going to take them out. You know what I mean? They won the match. They have the belts. And I just don't see anyone beating them. And a thought that goes through my mind when I think about those two is that the only thing that's going to defeat them is going to be themselves. Because obviously when Jade Cargill came on board WWE, she is with Bianca Belair. These two are very, amazing wrestlers. They seemingly are going to clash at some point. And I think that's really going to be the only demise that really, contributes to their defeat. You know what I mean? So the Monday Night Raw following Crown Jewel, we see Liv Morgan come out and Raquel Rodriguez. And we see Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair go out there, and then Adam comes out and basically does a battle royal for the Women's World Championship. And in the middle of the match, I think at the very end, you see Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are one of the last two of the four remaining in the match, and they look at each other because they know that only one of them is going to win. And they look like they're about to get into it. But on a creative standpoint, they get interfered. They couldn't really wrestle because they got involved with two other wrestlers that were kind of like off on the side. So narratively, I think they're waiting to kind of simmer that off until later. But we know that it's coming. And I think that's really going to be the only thing that breaks those two apart is the ultimate goal, which is a world title, a singles world title. So I think that that's going to be the only thing that breaks them up. But Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, both picked up the victory in that Fatal 4-Way. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's a really good match. Amazing spots. It was really good. The next match that we get into, we'll go into Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. We've been seeing this match simmer for weeks. I don't think that this could have played any better. They're really pumping Bronson Reed to be this indestructible force, this storm, this tsunami that is just basically running havoc all over Raw in the WWE. Seth Rollins, I feel, really does a good job elevating Bronson Reed. He is, one of these characters that's like a wild card. You never know what Seth Rollins is going to do. He's, certainly a babyface right now, but will stoop to a level to assure victory. And we saw that. That match was absolutely awesome. It was so good. It was probably the best way to wrap up that match. But so Seth Rollins won. But they did a good job of making Bronson Reed look good with the victory, with Seth Rollins' victory. And I don't think that this is over. Because at the end, Bronson Reed gets up, his blood is pouring down his face. Seth Rollins is out, walking, to the exit on the ramp. And he turns around and you can see him mouth like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's just so amazing how they're pumping up Bronson Reed. I won't lie to you. I always knew that Bronson Reed had talent. I wasn't super excited for him in a booking standpoint. But I really think that this was the right move for Bronson Reed to be matched up with Seth Rollins and at least having a feud between those two moving forward. I don't think this is the last time that we're going to see them interfere. As you probably noticed, if you watched Raw, you saw Bronson Reed interfere with the 4-way match for the men to have their number one contendership for the world title against Gunther. And Bronson Reed interfered in that match the following Monday. So this is going to be a story that we're going to see play out over time. I think it makes Bronson Reed relevant in the main card roster. And it also gives Seth Rollins a chance to just tell a crazy story. You know what I mean? Seth Rollins is an amazing athlete. He's an amazing performer, amazing wrestler. He always goes out there and puts 110%. The entire time that he carried the World Championship belt, he literally workhorsed that thing all the way to WrestleMania. Definitely one of my favorite wrestlers. So I don't think that they could have paired Bronson Reed with anyone better than Seth Rollins. I mean, they're both studs, and it makes Bronson Reed look good, even though Bronson Reed lost. So I'm looking forward to that story going forward. Super good, super amazing, super awesome. We are going to go into probably... This is kind of a tricky way to say this because my favorite segment in the show technically wasn't a match because it really didn't even get started. You had so let's talk about Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. My gosh, if you would have just told me that these two are gonna wrestle, I probably would have put that in the bottom 3 of interesting matches of the night. But the way that turned out made it the most interesting segment in the entire PLE, in my opinion. They get out there and start whooping each other down before the bell even rings. You know what I mean? They can't even get into the ring. You know, weapons are being used. It's just absolute chaos. By the time that they're trying to get the match started, Kevin Owens stuns the referee, which immediately caught my attention. I was like, oh my God. Kevin Owens has finally lost his damn marbles. He's going back to the old Kevin Owens. He's going to start stunning everyone. He's going to just demolish everything. We're going to see lunatic Kevin Owens here. And then how insane Kevin Owens gets brings out the very best we have been waiting to see for Randy Orton. He RKOs the general manager of Raw. Nobody is safe around these two. If you take a look at their history between Randy Orton and Kevin Owens and put them at their most insane heel versions of themselves, that is what we got in that segment. It ended up turning into a brawl that went into the audience and basically got Randy Orton onto some sort of platform. Kevin Owens goes up the stairs and into the crowd and drops a Macho Man elbow right onto KO, and the whole thing collapses and the segment ends. There was not even a match. It was just so insane. Classic Kevin Owens sort of match. And I think that we saw, because we've seen since Randy Orton's return, his babyface aura. I think Kevin Owens losing his marbles and having this vicious attack is going to bring out the heel that we have all been waiting to see with Randy Orton. And I think that we're going to get a pretty good storyline. I hope that we get a match at Survivor Series War Games with those two. But it's certainly going to play into Cody Rhodes' path at some point. Just because that they have been aligned with Cody Rhodes most of his undisputed run. So I'm interested to see that. Definitely what's wrong about Kevin Owens or Randy Orton RKOing Cody Rhodes. But something's going to happen. They're both coming for Cody Rhodes just because they have been so tied into each other over the last 6 months. So looking forward to that. That was actually my favorite part about Crown Jewel, was just the absolute insanity. It just brought back childhood glee and just watching absolute chaos and destruction between wrestlers. So that was actually my favorite match. So no winner there, no match, but certainly was probably one of the most entertaining things to watch there at Crown Jewel. So that was pretty good. Next, we're going to be going over probably the best match of the night. And that was going to be Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes versus L.A. Knight. Yeah! Man, I can't even begin to describe. I mean, I could if you gave me time. But the amount of hype that Andrade and Carmelo Hayes have been building the past couple months with this series of matches to determine the number one contendership for the United States Championship held by LA Knight. But those two wrestlers are so talented, man. Andrade is so technical and just so good at what he does. He is such a good professional wrestler. The guy is a freaking animal. You put him up against Carmelo Hayes, who is such a talented athlete and a great professional wrestler. These two dudes literally hype each other up in the game. I know that in the storyline that they don't like each other, but those two guys have been putting out bangers. Bangers. They have been putting on the best matches on the SmackDown show. Those matches have been the best matches in SmackDown for the past couple months, hands down. Like, I don't care what you say. Those two guys have been putting on the best matches. They've been stealing the show on SmackDown. It's ridiculous how talented they are. And you put them up against LA Knight in a triple threat match. My God, that match was so good. So good. You know, Carmelo Hayes and Andrade did everything I expected them to do because of their professionalism and their athletic ability to carry out what we expect from professional wrestling. And LA Knight just continues to surprise me. I know he gets a lot of flack and beef for, like, you know, messing up some of the spots that he does by, and usually what it is, it's him jumping on top of that third rope onto the turnbuckle to do like a superplex. But that's such a hard technique. But I think LA Knight is probably one of the most underrated wrestlers on the roster. People say that, you know, that he's got all these problems, but he continues to pull out techniques and moves since his big push. I would say starting, it could have been late last year, and it could have been maybe Royal Rumble-ish, but he starts pulling out new techniques after, like, on new PLEs all the time. His repertoire is huge. You know, he does so good at just introducing, like, little things here, and like, before you know it, it's like he just has these techniques that ultimately could just be the finishers, right? Could be his finisher. He had the one where he jumps onto the top rope 2 times and drops the elbow. He has the superplex. He's just been doing so much more risk that's been putting him over at my eyes, because it shows me that he's not scared. And I think that LA Knight understands that he's got to perform at this top level if he is going to be, you know, relevant in the WWE. Even though he's relevant, I'm not saying he's not relevant. I'm a huge LA Knight fan, and I'm not saying this, you know, from a biased opinion. I mean, it could be, but I really feel like the guy is super talented. He takes huge risks, and he's always trying to put on a good show. And he's got the, you know, charisma. He's literally like the total freaking package. He's going to continue to grow. I wish that they would probably showcase him more on SmackDown so we can see more of him. But, you know, I'm not creative. There might be reasons behind that. But, you know, that match was so good between the 3 of those guys. So those 3 guys are probably some of the most talented wrestlers in the WWE roster today. I don't care what you say. And having those 3 in that match was absolutely explosive. To the ultimate finish with the double BFT. Oh my freaking God. It was a masterclass of wrestling, in my opinion. LA Knight retains the United States Championship and moves forward, man. All hail LA Knight. Yeah. Next match, we got the Liv Morgan and Nia Jax match for the Crown Jewel Championship. That one was pretty interesting. A lot of interference and schmaz going on in there. So good keeping it, you know, intense and spontaneous with Tiffy Time coming out. Is she going to cash in? Is she not going to cash in? Then, you know, Rodriguez coming out. It was just action-packed the entire time. I will say I was surprised. I thought Nia Jax was going to get it, but Liv Morgan got it. And, I mean, I'm not mad. I like it. I like Liv Morgan. I like what she's doing. I like the push that they're doing for her. Well deserved. It was an awesome match. Interesting to see how everything plays out between Nia and Tiff moving forward. But yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see that story go. At least even on Liv's push going forward. Seeing her with Raquel Rodriguez could make for an interesting, you know, tag team title contendership against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I wouldn't mind seeing Liv holding the women's world champion her Crown Jewel championship ring, and maybe a tag belt too. I mean, then she could essentially run the Judgment Day and have more credibility than Rhea. I'm just kidding, Rhea. You know I love you. But yeah, I think it's going to be great to see that story go forward, and that was actually a really good match. The next match between Cody Rhodes and Gunther. Oh man. I would say this is probably the least exciting match for me. It was a good match. I think that there was some really awesome spots in there. The only reason why I had a hard time getting into it is because it was very predictable how it was going to end. There's no way that they're going to have Gunther pin your WWE Undisputed Champion. It didn't happen. The way that Cody Rhodes won was pretty awesome. Tried to go off the top turnbuckle, ended up getting caught in a sleeper hold. Fell back, and then Cody Rhodes rolls over his head and pins Gunther for a 1-2-3 count while in the sleeper hold. It was so amazing. It was like certainly a callback to whenever he beat Brock Lesnar with the guillotine and pinned him down. What was that? Was that Backlash or SummerSlam? I think it might have been Backlash. I can't remember. But it definitely was a callback to that, like being put into a submission, and even though the person who is trying to submit Cody Rhodes has got him in a submission, Cody Rhodes finds a way to put him in a pin and count to 3, because at the end of the day, that's all you need to do. If you can pin your person who's submitting you, and before they can put you to sleep, then that's a dub, babe. And the dub is what Cody Rhodes got, and he is your Crown Jewel champion with his ring. I didn't see it yet because we haven't seen SmackDown. It airs tonight. Or if you're watching on another day, then it probably already aired. But we'll see how that goes moving forward. Okay, so let's get into making sure I didn't miss anything here, the Bloodline match. Okay. So I certainly thought that the OG Bloodline was going to win that match. Just because I didn't think that they would let anyone pin Roman. But I was wrong. I really liked that match. The biggest thing, I am such a Jacob Fatu fan. Such a big Jacob Fatu fan. This new Bloodline, I will admit, I absolutely resented and hated whenever it first launched. But these last 2 months have really been so entertaining with the new Bloodline. You have... I mean, everybody... You had the crowd doing that back to Tonga Tonga. I thought it was the stupidest thing. But after hearing Saudi Arabia... back... It was amazing. It was in that moment that it clicked. I was like, "No, man, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool." You had Jacob Fatu, who is an absolute beast. If y'all are watching WWE and you strictly watch WWE and you don't know who Jacob Fatu is, please go onto YouTube or whatever you find like clips and search Jacob Fatu matches. This guy is an absolute killer. And I love the way that Jacob Fatu is playing his role in the new Bloodline. Like, it is so good. He's so intense. He does the craziest stuff and puts everything on the line. And he puts on an amazing show. And I think he's doing such a good job in the WWE right now. And last but not least, Solo Sikoa. He was so despicable after they turned on Jimmy. I could not stand him. I had a hard time watching the clips of him talking and speaking to the WWE Universe. But I don't know, man. These last 2 months, I really feel like he's honed in on something really special. I think that he's definitely taken a comedic approach. The dude is super funny. And he's really leaning into that kind of like cocky, humorous kind of mentality that really has got me on board with Solo Sikoa. My journey with Solo Sikoa. So whenever I got back into wrestling about 2 years ago, one of the first matches I watched was with Solo Sikoa, and I was like, man, I really like this guy. The Bloodline story is progressing. This is before Cody Rhodes won the championship, and I slowly was starting to dislike the guy. But I feel like I'm on this trajectory to like really liking Solo Sikoa right now. I think he's doing a good job. I think he's really owning the heel. At first, I feel like people really hated him, but now it's really kind of. I feel like he's almost getting. I'm not saying he's like this other wrestler yet, but I feel like he's already kind of working his way towards that trajectory. And I'm going to say it, but he's going to be working his way up in regard to hateable heels like Dirty Dom, to the point where Dirty Dom loves it. Like, Solo looks like he is having so much fun with this new like rendition of his identity, with this like kind of comedic approach, and he's really just leaning into it. And I think he's found his character. Whether that happened organically or someone was talking to him, I feel like the character he's doing right now is so good. I love the work, Solo. Keep doing your thing. It's amazing. But to segue from Solo, the match was really, really good. You saw from the very beginning, everybody wanted Roman Reigns. There was a lot of interference, as Bloodline matches usually go. Ultimately ending up with Solo Sikoa pinning Roman Reigns. Clean. I don't know if you heard me, but Solo Sikoa pinned Roman Reigns. Clean. I did not expect that. That's really all to say. I have no words to say. I just didn't think they would do it. That is 2 major victories that Solo Sikoa has had at Crown Jewel. Cena, Reigns. Put that on any resume. If you were to say, we're going to get a wrestler on our team, on our faction, that's beat Roman Reigns and John Cena. That right there, that resume by itself sounds really good. So Sikoa, do your thing. He's doing a good job, loving the character work. So this is going to lead me into kind of talking about the Bloodline story moving forward, going into Survivor Series War Games. We saw at the end of the match, Sami Zayn getting involved with an accidental kick to Roman Reigns' face. If there's a man you don't want to kick in the face, it's definitely Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is not a guy you want to kick in the face. Yeah, I mean, he was down and out, but Roman Reigns is going to get back up. I mean, it's Roman Reigns. And to win back his favor is going to be hard. Because, I mean, we all know who Roman Reigns is. And we know how forgiving he is. So, we'll see how that plays out. So, I'm really feeling for Jimmy. I was listening to the Ring of Wrestling show, the Masked Man show, and they had a guest talking about Jimmy. And it got me thinking about Jimmy a lot. And, I've always loved Jimmy. And, they were talking about how Jimmy, like, what does Jimmy's path look like going forward if he's going to be successful in a solo run? We're used to seeing Jimmy, at least with the old Bloodlines, kind of like this comedic relief who's kind of like trying to give a high five and he doesn't get it. And he like high fives himself in the background, is like smiling, kind of like this like little prankster, jokester kid that we used to hang out with in high school, or maybe you were that kid in high school. Just really funny character. But I went to a house show in Houston, and the match that he was in was a Texas death match with LA Knight. When Jimmy came out, he was super serious, which was unlike the character that I was used to seeing on TV. And seeing Jimmy in that serious role really showed me that he really could probably play a serious role in the WWE Universe, in the narrative that's the Bloodline. They were saying that he needs to get a fresh start, kind of work his way up, doing matches against people who are not involved with the Bloodline, kind of establish credibility with his story that way. But, I think the best way to do that, at least in my vision, is to have him take a serious role, right? He is a guy who has been wrestling with his brother for years and years and years, basically his whole life, right? They go through family drama. His brother leaves, and then the person that, Jay and Jimmy looked up to, Roman Reigns, was beat by Cody Rhodes. He was ousted. And so Jimmy, trying to find loyalty within the Bloodline, or at least the remnants of, was betrayed by Solo Sikoa, beat him up, put him on the shelf for a while. I really think that this makes a good story as a path to, I don't want to say redemption because I don't think he has to redeem anything, but definitely a path to, it's kind of like a path to reestablish his identity, right? You know, he's leaned in close to Roman, and he still is currently. He doesn't have his identity with his brother anymore because Jay has now established his own identity as the main event Jey Uso, who has an Intercontinental Championship title belt hold. So what does that look like for Jimmy? I mean, if he wants to do a solo run, what does that look like? I really think that they should lean in on a serious role with him. I'm going to call him the Grim Reaver Jimmy. Some of the biggest things that Jimmy does for me that has got an emotional response or some sort of like hype response from me is when he's come out like stealth. He's got the bandana over his face. He's got the hood up. And he's coming in like an assassin, like Wu-Tang style, or going in like Naruto style. Going in there like Uchiha Sasuke. Going in there, getting in there, doing some stuff, and then, you know, basically knocking people out with a few moves. I really feel like if they do this gimmick with him, with like this assassin style Jimmy, who is like coming in with the bandana, you know, with the hood up, and he's just playing this serious role, coming out walking like he normally does. Like, I really feel like that could really work for him. And he has to start taking out people on SmackDown on matches. Like, he needs to be booked appropriately, just taking out people. And I feel like that should be his style, right? You know, I just feel like the way to do that is to put him in a role where he's taken seriously. And I feel like when he is serious, he's got this look and he stands there with this posture and he's like just ready to go at the drop of a dime. And I feel that when I watch him, because when he like moves like that and he's looking at you and he's like turning his head and he's looking, like I feel it. I feel it, like the intention is like, man, something can happen at any moment, like a Tarantino flick. So I think if they work Jimmy, they should work him like he's some sort of like, you know, ninja or assassin. Goes in there and like hits the vital points and just eliminates people like in a cold, calculated manner. And we need to start that now, okay? Because I've always been a fan of Jimmy, okay? I love Jay so much. But if you're asking me putting Jimmy and Jay side by side and who's got like the, you know, the vibe that I'm like, man, like something is serious. It's Jimmy for me. It's Jimmy. I just feel like he needs to be booked right. And I feel like if they book him as this serious like ninja style dude that comes out with his bandana and he's coming out, you know, doing his thing with the vibe check with the WWE universe, like that shit's gonna bang, dude. It's gonna bang. So hopefully, you know, they do something with Jimmy. There was an interesting take I heard on the Ring of Wrestling show, the Masked Man show. So that's my take. I know it's not a, you know, tell all end all of how they're gonna do it, but I feel like that's the approach that they should take with this character. Something serious, something ninja-y, something like assassin style kind of gimmick that I think they should do with him. And man, so I guess it leaves, you know, what the old bloodline's gonna do. People were saying they were gonna get Sami Zayn to come back and do it. I didn't think that it was gonna happen, but it's looking like that's probably what's gonna happen, even though Sami Zayn disagreed on Monday Night Raw, you know, walking out. But it looks like ultimately that's what's gonna happen. But if you're gonna ask me who is going to win the War Games, I do not think it's gonna be the OG Bloodline. I don't. I think it's gonna be Bloodline 2.0. It's gonna be Solo, the Tongas, and Jacob Fatu. I just think it's going to be those four that's going to win. Putting Roman Reigns up and his OG bloodline as victors doesn't really do anything, doesn't do any favors for the story, because they need to give credibility to basically the new bloodline. Not that they need it, because Solo's character has come up doing amazing things. You got Jacob Fatu, who's just a rabid animal. And you have the Tongas that always perform, and it's just a powerhouse, you know what I mean? And it's just going to continue to play out. What's going to be interesting is to see is basically how The Rock gets involved. Like, what does that look like? Do we see more people from the bloodline get involved? Do we see Zilla Fatu? Where's Zilla Fatu? Like, he needs to be called up. I thought he was going to show up in the last PLE. Maybe he'll show up in a Survivor Series. Maybe a little Zilla Fatu. Maybe a little Zilla Fatu. Maybe a little Zilla Fatu. I'm pulling for you, Zilla. I think you're ready, man. So, how dope would it be to have two Fatus on the Bloodline 2.0? I mean, that would be wild. How wild would it be to have Fatu versus Fatu with Zilla Fatu on the OG Bloodline? That he gets nabbed up by the OGs. I mean, the possibilities are endless. But thank you so much for tuning in. This is Alexander from the Nerd Companion, and thank you for watching a ClashCast. If you liked anything, please body slam that like, follow, subscribe button. If you disagree or agree with anything, please comment down below. Let's have a discussion. I love the feedback. Share with a friend. Thank y'all so much. This train goes on forever. Stay hungry. Yeah!